Coming up on Digging into the Future.
You know, in a way, we're not as an industry collectively. There's nobody standing out as showing that they've fought to win. They've fought to beat the other guy. You know, there's in any one country, there's four of us in the same situation, and you can fight and beat the other guy and get some of his share. But that's not winning, because there's the big game is obviously the OTTs.
Today we have Paul Reynolds, one of the long-standing CEOs in our industry, has presided over some of the biggest regulatory changes in the markets where he operated, and has also been a very active guy in terms of regulation, in terms of thought leadership around the industry. And for many of us slightly younger CEOs, he's been a bit of a mentor to all of us. And so a great man to have on and to hear his opinion today on what's going on around the industry and getting his view on the future of what we should be seeing over the next 10 years. So welcome to Digging into the Future, Paul.
Hey, Bill. Glad to be here.
The big thing that happened, I guess, over the last year is that essentially 6 companies have become 60% of the market capitalization of the entire United States stock market, and obviously have dominant control in the space. And there's been a call out, I think, across the industry for regulation of the OTTs. And I mean, what are you seeing this as something that's going to happen similar to what happened in New Zealand, for example, when they separated the telco into 2 parts, or deregulation in the United States in the 80s with MCI and AT&T? Do you think we have something like that coming in our direction, or do you think we're sort of just going to see more of the same, and there's a new paradigm between government regulators and sort of infrastructure providers?
For sure, they're attracting a huge amount of attention, not just in the States, of course. I mean, I think Europe is, the EU is particularly strong in some of the issues here. Ireland, with Facebook recently, and I think it's inevitable that there will be more regulation, and the people who manage that best will be the people who recognise it is coming and prepare for it. And if you think about, what's the accommodation between our business and our business objectives and the public objectives? And there's very legitimate public objectives on privacy, on the use of data, on safety of citizens and so forth, So, and you see the big guys preparing for this in all sorts of ways, and then, the former Deputy Prime Minister of the UK, Nick Clegg, is, the head of public relations and regulation for Facebook worldwide, so they're obviously going to the politicians, to heavyweight politicians, to learn them to think about what's coming, and it's inevitable, absolutely inevitable.
How do you get engagement with the enterprise? Where do you stop the OTT from taking a lot of this revenue share from you? I mean, what do you do as a telco right now when you think about it? What are you seeing as some of these companies doing? Yeah.
We've seen changes coming and changes go for 30 years. And bit by bit, we have become commoditized, bluntly. Yeah. And the OTTs are taking the value because I think they give a superior customer experience, And so I think, if you really want to think really big, as a services telco, I'm not talking about the infrastructure business, but as a provider of services, I think we have to think long and hard about what has happened. We can run this cycle a dozen times, but yet these guys get a stronger and stronger relationship with the customer, and we become less and less differentiated from the next telco down the road. What can we do to break the cycle? And if we can't, what do we do to partner with the guys who are doing that customer interface really well, so that we secure our long-term future? They don't just swallow up what we do completely. Because that could happen, as we all know, from various technologies.
No, I think it's a real possibility, right? I mean, it's the fiber business is at risk, the data center business potentially at risk with cloud, and guys essentially building their own capabilities. So you could, maybe the towers have largely been sold off by most companies now. So really the only thing they are competing is in sort of the consumer interface and sort of the business solution side of it. which
and we tend to, as an industry, come too little, too late. And you got 120 telcos around the world, all thinking they can, produce Me Too, Apple, Netflix, Google services. Well, that's suboptimal. It's subscale. It's it's. I don't know the answer, Bill, but I know that we've repeatedly convinced ourselves and investors that we know the answer, and we haven't delivered.
Yeah.
So what's the way through? Is it partnership? What's the way through to ensure our long-term success? We've got to think strategically long and hard about that.
No, I think it's probably the hardest question. These are probably the hardest boardrooms to be in today. If you're a carrier that does fixed line and wireless, I mean, what do you do? I mean, it seems like prices will continue to drop. CapEx continues to climb. And more of the wallet share is going to the handset and to the clouds, right? So exactly. even the enterprise is being lost to the cloud, right? I mean, it's essentially you're being marginalized there as well.
Well, mind you, I don't think telcos have made vast profits from enterprise for years. It's always been a cutthroat game.
Yeah.
But cloud certainly makes it much less under your control. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and it's I think it's probably the biggest dilemma in every board for the next few years, right?
Yeah, in a way we're not, as an industry collectively. There's nobody standing out as showing that they've fought to win.
Yeah,
they've fought to beat the other guy.
Yeah,
there's in any one country there's four of us in the same situation, and you can fight and beat the other guy and get some of his share.
Yeah.
But that's not winning, because there's the big game is obviously the OTTs.
So just one last question before we move on. Obviously you were one of the great CEOs. If you had a chance to do it all over again, would you do it the same way? Would you do the companies that you did? Tell me.
I certainly wouldn't start with Telex and international Telex. No, that's for sure.
All right, so Telex is out. Okay,
it's a good question, and I think it depends how do you define what business you're in, And I've always thought I'm in technology, communications, media in the widest sense. I've been interested in all of it, and I think it's really important to think about all of it, because it's who's winning, who's losing, what's combined, what's separate is changing all the time.
Yep.
And I find this industry is as fascinating and as fast moving as in that wide sense as it's ever been. Does that mean you have to start with a national telco? No.
Yeah.
But actually the big monopolies are becoming, where we started in this conversation, the big monopolies are becoming your Facebooks and your Netflixes, and they'll face the same regulatory challenges, interestingly enough. So, it's a great industry we're in. There's many, many choices to be made. And for any of us that's in it, we need to think of ourselves as in that big industry and pick our place. Do you want to protect revenues under threat from regulation? Do you want to invest your time inventing new services and blazing the trail of new service innovation? There's so much to be done, and technology is ever fascinating and resourceful at giving us new things to do. It brings a smile to my face.
No, it's a great place to be, and you certainly had probably one of the funnest runs of anyone. So you've been very fortunate, and the envy of many of us for the fun that you've had.
Kind of you. I've certainly enjoyed it enormously, and still continue to do so.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure you will for many, many more years. So this is Paul Reynolds coming to you from Digging into the Future. Thanks, Paul, for joining us today, and really enjoyed spending some time with you.
Pleasure, Bill. Thank you.